Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. In particular, I'd like to talk about how I have started to code the ability to give orders to companions, which may or may not be obeyed, and we'll see how that works in future videos. But for now, I've got a combat set up here, and it's the player characters go, and as you can see we've got buttons that we've talked about before: advance, retreat, shoot, pistol whip, but we've got a new one called give an order. And if I click on that, I will get pictures of the two companions. And then for each of them, we have four options: charge, cover me, fall back, regroup, charge, cover me, fall back, regroup for companion 2. If I've changed my mind, as with attacks, if I've changed my mind, I just press return and we go back to that screen. But let's say that I do want to give an order. The way that it is set up at the moment, giving an order doesn't count as one of the player's two actions, so they can do this and move and shoot, but they can only give one order, or can only attempt one order per turn. So let's give an order. Let's say we want to tell companion 2 to charge. We click that, and this is only for testing, but it's just to confirm that it's entered it as the right companion getting the right order. It just says giving companion 2 order number 1, charge, which is indeed the one that we clicked. So that's what it does. Let's spend the rest of the video looking at the code that allows that to happen. So we have a couple of new variables that I need to talk about that are set up in initialize, as all the variables are. We have some new code here and here, a little bit here and here, and a little bit here, which is a new passage, order 2, and most of what we're going to look at today is in this other new passage, which is order. So let's look at the new variables first. We'll zoom in a little. So we have one called given order, Givenor, and as the note says, set to 1 if player character has given an order this turn. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. It just keeps track of the player character's ability to give one order a turn that is separate to the actions, which are kept track of. How many they've done are kept track of with the variable actions, $actions. And also the companions' actions are actually the monsters and companions and the player characters are all kept track of with actions, but given order is a special one that only applies to the player character, because in this game the enemies don't give each other orders and the companions don't give orders either. And we also have trust, which we're not going to use as yet, because the way it works is that when a player character gives an order, there's a roll to see if the companion will obey the order, and one of the factors is how much the companion trusts the player character, and that is kept track of in the variable trust, which is an array. So trust square bracket 1 end square bracket would be the trust that that companion 1 has. Trust 2 would be the trust that companion 2 has, and if there was a possibility of more companions, then so on for other slots. The viewer of the game, the viewer whose game this is going to be, said that I should set everyone's trust initially to 2. So that's what I've done in this for loop where we set up various things. One of the consequences, the fact that this starts at 0 means that trust 0 is set to 2 and that slot is not used because slot 0 refers to the player character, and the player character's trust for themselves isn't something that makes any sense in the game. But that doesn't matter. It just has a value in there that's never going to be used. And it's easier to just do it and have that than to... I could have set up a separate loop that went from 1 to com max just for trust, but it's easier to just put it in here and have a variable that isn't ever looked at. So, at the start of each combat round, we roll initiative, and because the player character can give one order every round... Sorry, I say combat round and combat turn. I use those two expressions pretty much interchangeably to mean the same thing. I know in some games a round and a turn are different things, but I think they're called turns in this game, but I sometimes say combat round. So sorry if you didn't know what I was talking about there. It's just I'm mislabeling combat turns basically. All right. I'll try not to do it, but I can't guarantee I won't do it again. So if I do it again, that's what I meant. All right, so we set given order to 0 every time we roll initiative, which means every time there's a new combat round. We set it to 0, which means that the player character has yet to give an order this turn. Then we need to give the player character the option to give an order, but we only want to do that if there's a companion that they can attempt to order, which won't always be the case. So, as we've discussed before, when it's the player character's go, we will be going to this passage, which is called player character. And if they're prone, they'll stand up and that's their next action. But otherwise, we print all these buttons that give all their different options. And down here is the code relating to the order or give an order button. So it only happens if given order is equal to 0. So once you give an order, whether it succeeds or fails, you can't give any more this round. And we do this with a structure that we've used a lot before, where we set a temporary variable to 0. We go through a for loop, which might set that temporary variable to 1. And then if it is set to 1, that means that we have at least one, in this case, one companion that we can give an order to, and therefore we will print the button, and if not, we won't. So we have, we set z equal to 0. We have a for loop going from 1 to com_max. And that the temporary variable will be used for that for loop is y. If com y2 is over 0, well, com something 2 is the hit points of a given companion. So basically we're saying if their hit points are over 0, which means they are alive. There's a companion there, and they haven't yet been killed in the course of the combat, because of course we wouldn't want the player character to be able to give an order to a dead character. That wouldn't make any sense in the fiction of the game. If that's the case, we set z equal to 1, and then we finish the for loop. And if z is equal to 1, we print the button, and the button is given order. That's the text on the button. And then order is the destination. Because this is more than one word, we enclose it in quotes. Because this is only one word, it's got no spaces, we don't need to enclose it in quotes. We could, but we don't. I normally don't, if I don't need to. We could put some code in here if we wanted some code to execute when the button was pressed, but in this case we don't. So let's have a look at order. This is where we're going to print the all of the options, which means we're going to print every companion who's alive, and then next to each companion who's alive we'll have the 4 possible orders. Sorry, I've just remembered there's another variable I should have told you about, so I'll do that now. So there's actually 3 new variables, sorry, not 2 as I said before. And the name of that is order names, I think. Let's have a look. Where is it? There. Oh, order name, sorry. So we have an array. I've set the 0th the 0th slot to be nothing and put the names of the orders in slot 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I find it easier to think about. I find it easier to count from 1 usually. And the names of the orders are charge, cover me, fall back, and regroup, all of which have an exclamation mark because I assume that you'd be sort of shouting them in this context. Okay, so let's go back to this. So we have a for loop. It goes from 1 to com_max. Once again, we check if com z, in this case z, if com z2 is over 0, well, that means we've got a living companion. And so we, everything up to there is enclosed in that if. So most of what happens is conditional on this being true, which of course makes sense. If there's no companion in a given slot, well, you don't really want to do anything with it. So what do we do? Well, once again, it's as you can see, it's a HTML table. So we have to have table and slash table. We start a new row, which we're going to end down here. And the row has 2, well, actually 3, but one of them's a sort of blank gap. We have 3 TDs or cells. First one, TD align equals center. This is the identical code from the passage story caption where we print the pictures of the player character and the smaller pictures of the companions. I literally just cut and paste this and changed the name of the variable to Z. And what it will print is something like img, or square bracket img, square bracket art, slash attper, that's attribute by persona, something 0. So, and the something is com z1. So let's have a look at that. What is com something 1? Com z1 is the persona. So it's a number. And so we'll end up looking in attper, let's say 30, for example. And that, although att_per is the attributes, it's attributes by persona. It's the attributes that the different personas have. But, sorry, I've scrolled past it. It also has the name in slot 0. By the way, the viewer whose combat system this is wanted to have, as well as warrior, scientist, scoundrel, and influencer, they wanted to have some non-player character types. So types that the player character can't be, but that you might meet some of these in the course of the adventure, and they're sort of weaker than these player character types. So that's why we've got these extra slots here. Which is fine, because if we were using, like, why doesn't it pick these up and sort of try and print pictures of them at the beginning? Well, because we're not using .length to print pictures of all of the personas. We have a separate variable called per_num, persona number, how many personas there are, and that is set to 4. Even though there's these extra ones, per_num only keeps track of the player character personas, and therefore it only prints the 4 pictures rather than trying to print these other pictures. Anyway, so that's what that is, if you saw that and was confused. But anyway, the point is that we get the name of a persona out of this array. So going back to here, it will print something like square bracket img, square bracket art, slash influencer, space, and then it prints com z4. Com z4, or com anything 4, is the gender saved as a single letter. So it'll be influencer M or influencer F. And then it has, I think there's a space there. Then it has space small .png square bracket square bracket. So the result of this code will be to look in the art folder and then look for example, influencer space m space small .png, or whatever, scientist f or whatever it might be. In other words, print a picture, the small picture of that character class or persona. Then print a line break, then in bold print companion 1 or companion 2. Then we have another cell, which is just 20 pixels of gap, just because that made it look a bit better. And then we have a for loop that goes from 1 to 4. And now that is slightly bad practice. What I should have done, I should have based it on order name.length minus 1 rather than having it go to a set number 4. I should make it go to order name.length minus 1, because if I had done it that way, then I can change the order name array by adding or subtracting an order, and this will still be right. As it is, if I was to change the order number array, I would also need to change this. But at the moment, there's only 4 orders, and I'm sort of assuming it's going to stay the same. But yeah, it's not probably the best way that I could have done it. Anyway, for each of them, it will print a button which represents giving that particular order to that particular companion. So it will do something like this. It will print button, and then within quotes it might be something like charge, and then within quotes it will definitely be order sort of 11 or II, order 2, just because that's the name of the destination. So this is the text that will appear. This is the destination. The destination's always going to be the same. And then it'll be something like set z equals 1, set y equals 2, something like that, / button. And then the next time it goes through, it would be, I don't know the order of the, I don't know if this is the correct way that these different orders are listed. I'm just giving this as an example. Then it would say set z equals 2. Oh, sorry, it would probably say set z equals 1, set y equals 3, etc., etc. So it'll go through the 4 different orders. So actually it would start with 1, and then it would do 2, and then 3, and then 4. So it's a button that leads to the same place, but it has z and y are different, and they keep track of which order are we giving or trying to give, and which companion are we giving it to, both of which are obviously going to be quite relevant when we come to test whether the order works or not. And if it does work, who does it affect? And then we're just closing off the TDs, TRs, the ifs, the fors, etc. And then, of course, because the player might look at all those and go, actually, I don't want to do that yet, I will try and shoot first and then make a decision as to which order to do based on the results of that. For example, we have if you've changed your mind, then we can return, and that goes back to the screen, whose go is it? And we set print underscore dist equals 1. Well, this is a variable that we've talked about before, but I'll refresh your memory. It tells the computer that, yeah, we're going to need to print out where everyone is again, because if we didn't do that, we'd just get the buttons that are the player's options, and we don't want that. We want to go back and sort of get the combat screen again, and then have the buttons. And so once we eventually pick an order, we'll be on here. And I haven't, as you can see, I haven't done very much code at all. I've just got a little bit of note to myself that says Z is which companion is being given the order and Y is which order. Sorry, that shouldn't be there, that colon. There should be a full stop. And then for testing only, we say giving companion Z order number Y, colon, and then we print order name Y. So it'll say something like giving companion 2 order number 3 regroup. And we set given order to 0 because, again, you can only do 1 per turn. So therefore, they whether this one succeeds or fails, they won't be able to try again in this turn. And that is how that works. Next, of course, we need to do the roll to see whether the order succeeds or not. And then after that, we'll need to see what effect those orders will have on the companions. But for now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.